This book is really special. I think if you're in my life, you're going to be getting this as a gift sometime soon, just as a spoiler. I can't give you my copy because it is very marked up. How much of an impact it's been making and how much of an impact it might have in your own life. I've decided to embark on a journey of creative discovery and rediscovery at the age of 28. Having spent the last 9 or 10 years in academia, pursuing a doctorate and other degrees, and really ignoring my creative side for a really long time. I'm doing this using this book, The Artist Way, by Julia Cameron, according to itself, the classic course in discovering and rediscovering your creative self. The program itself is 12 weeks, and each week has a different theme, as well as readings that go along with that and activities that go along with that, like kind of journaling exercises. There are also 2 components that are carried with you every week throughout the program and should be carried with you afterwards. And those 2 components are the morning pages and the artist date. A little bit first about why it's important for me at this time in my life to take on this challenge. As a child, I think was a very creative person. I used to love a lot of different creative activities like drawing and acting, and I also was the kind of child that was always being told how smart I was. And I think I placed a lot of value on intelligence at a young age. That then meant that I think a lot of the choices I made going forward in life were around that identity of being smart. And that led me down to a career in, or a study path in mathematics, with the idea of an eventual career in data science and a PhD. And I think having gone through all of that and achieved all of those goals that I wanted to from that aspect, I think I just came out of it with this real crisis of identity, because I'm not sure that the life that I've been living in pursuing all of these is the life that I want to be living. And in the last year, I've been slowly rediscovering aspects of my creativity, or really just personal enjoyment, and starting to take acting classes again, doing different workshops, and realizing that these are the times that I feel most right. Same thing for creating content. It's one of the things that I enjoy the most that I do, and I often don't get time for it because I am trying to pursue these kind of success-based goals that don't give me the same enjoyment as I would get from sitting down and filming a video and then getting to edit it and post it for you. And that's been really important for me to be thinking about for the last while. I feel that I'm connecting with something that is like the thing that I'm meant to be doing with my life, and I feel so much more happiness and joy in my life from going through this experience, even though I feel like I'm about to cry, but that's fine. This book is really special. I would definitely recommend getting a physical copy. It is also available on audiobook platforms. If you have Spotify Premium, apparently Spotify just does audiobooks for free on Spotify Premium now. So it is on Spotify Premium. I was re-listening to a couple of the chapters recently. I will say, because there are activities in the book, it's probably a difficult thing to listen to on Spotify unless you can maybe get the activities elsewhere, you know, like a written down copy of the activities that you'd want to do. Going to now talk to you about the basic principles of the artist way, morning pages, and the artist date. The morning pages is essentially 3 A4 pages of stream of consciousness, whatever is in your brain, getting out first thing in the morning. I usually have some sort of hot drink with my morning pages, whether that's a peppermint tea or a hot cacao. It's definitely my favorite time of the day. I talked about this recently in my morning routine video. I've been following this consistently for 6 months now, and the daily 3 pages has been really, really transformational. The author of the book recommends setting your alarm 30 minutes before you usually get up so that you can then do your morning pages. 3 A4 pages of writing. Even if you're not a writer, so if your creativity has nothing to do with writing, it's still the practice that you have to do. At first, this can be really confronting because most of us aren't used to writing that amount every single day. But the idea behind the morning pages is to clear your mind of the clutter in order to make space for creativity. It actually ties in with another productivity method that I use called the getting things done method. That's all about, again, clearing your mind so that you can then use it for greater things. If we're constantly thinking about all of the things that are on our mind, to-do lists, things that we're worried about, there's no space for anything bigger or better. I think having these two systems working together, the journaling in the morning, which then sometimes a lot of that will then get carried over to my getting things done productivity system, I can then release those worries and have space for creativity. The more often that we're clearing the decks of all of the things that we need to do and getting all of our worries out and finding a place for those worries to go, the more space we can create for creativity. It's important to remember with these, it's not about writing well. I think at first you can get into a habit of wanting to make these pages, well, firstly, really neat and tidy, but also full of excellent crafted sentences. And it's not about that. It's not about being super profound and being able to draw these philosophical conclusions for your morning pages. It's really about getting everything that's on your mind onto a page in front of you. Some mornings you'll find that just what's on your mind takes up 3 pages and you're done and it's out of you and there we go. Other days when you maybe haven't had this overspill of worries and things to do or even ideas, sometimes that's when it'll be slower. That's when sometimes it can be frustrating and you'll just end up writing, I have nothing to say today. And the author of the book says, if that's all you have to say, write that. Write it again, keep writing it until something else comes, and maybe it doesn't come today, and that is cool. It's about the habit of this process. When I first tried this well over a year ago, when I wasn't actually following the program but just started doing the morning pages, I did not do these consistently in the morning, and I think it's really important that they're the first thing that happens. I think for a number of reasons, but I know that your creativity is often most sparked when you're first awake in the morning, so it's a good time to do creative work. Also, I think it's really interesting to see where is your mind going first thing in the morning. Having now looked back on some of my pages from earlier in the year, it's interesting to see how much of my morning was taken up by certain stressors. I've been working really hard to try and alleviate some of those and figure out ways to confront things that I've maybe been avoiding because they're coming up in my morning pages so often that I wonder if those were gone, how much more space would there be for the other times when different things come out. There is a lot of time that's just spent with to-do lists and with what needs to be done for the day and planning, and then a poem will come out or ideas for videos or a new business idea. I don't really guide myself too much in terms of what I'm going to write about. I usually just let it go. Whatever happens, happens. And I'll find my way back to different ideas. Each time I come back to a new idea, for example, the business idea that I've been working on, I feel like I'm figuring it out more and more every time. And having this space to create that is just amazing. It's definitely been the best habit I think that I've ever added to my life for any reason, even if you're not planning on becoming an artist or being creative. I think it's worthwhile for everyone to do. I also feel when I do these pages, I can be more productive in the day because for the days that are very worrisome and where I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty, gathering that clarity in the mornings means that later on in the day, the work can happen more easily. So if you feel like you don't have time to do these, I guarantee you do. Start the first 30 minutes of your day this way and you'll have made the time back with the clarity that you've gotten from doing them. One would be not to allow other people to read your morning pages. They are really just for you. And even not to read them yourself for the first couple months at least when you're getting started with this. I've been doing this now consistently for 6 months, inconsistently for longer. And I now go back and look through my morning pages, but I don't typically look through the recent ones until maybe the end of the month. The reason for that is often these morning pages are hugely reflective, but also they're you as an artist unpacking a lot of emotional damage, sometimes getting into some sort of creation. And if we show these early works to people, it can sometimes be a way of bringing ourselves back again as an artist, because inevitably a lot of the people around us will also be stuck creatives. And when we show them what we're working on, it can sometimes lead to maybe a negative reaction that will then enforce our own negative beliefs about our creativity or our artistry. And I definitely can see that. I feel even in the last year when I've been going to different acting classes or doing different things to focus on my own creative work, it does challenge people around me because they are not ready to do the same thing for themselves. And it's easier for them if I'm not doing that, because then there's no challenge or no voice inside their head that's maybe trying to encourage them to do the same thing, because that's a really scary thing. And then the easy approach for them is to tell you that you shouldn't be doing that because it's again going to reduce the challenge towards them. So yes, not reading your pages, not letting other people read your pages for at least the beginning process, I think is important. The second key practice from the artist way is the artist date. This is a scheduled block of time every week that you set aside to nurture your inner artist and engage in activities that inspire and delight you. This idea, oddly, is linked to the idea of breakout blocks in a book called The 12-Week Year, which I think a lot of you know. A time in your week that you set aside for getting away from work as usual that can kind of inspire your creativity and help you to focus on more creative work. And these can allow you to have creative breakthroughs that you can then bring back into your larger process of work. Artist dates are all about giving yourself permission to play and explore. I think as adults, we let go of the idea of play way too early. I think it even happens when we're teenagers, that play is something for children, and it's not. It's something that we can do at any age. I don't think we should limit that to being for young children. The only rule of the artist date is that you go alone. It's definitely a temptation to start to bring other people into these because it's a lot more comfortable to go and do something artistic with somebody else. For example, going to a pottery painting class with a friend is a lot easier than going by yourself. This is meant to be quality time for you and your inner artist or your inner child. Shouldn't be involving other people. I think you can't fully experience this without having a distraction-free interaction. At first, and still now, I find the artist date a lot more difficult to achieve than the morning pages. With the morning pages, it's easy because it's the first thing that you do when you wake up, and you can always make sure that you wake up 30 minutes before you need to do anything else because we have some control in our mornings. When things get busy in the business that I run, I will forgo the artist date, and that is a big no-no. We have time for ourselves. It's something that I really struggle to uphold. Don't give myself this time. I don't think I deserve it. I think that's like an underlying part of this. The lack of belief that this time for me to just be creative, it's such a luxury that I can't afford because of the time that I should be doing all of these other things. And with a long ass to-do list and big important things that I need to be doing, how could I possibly give myself 2-3 hours to go and be artistic or creative when I have all of these other things to do? And it's so unfair on myself. It's really unkind. The thing that helps me to get out of that thinking is when you think about your artist, which is something that's referenced in the book a lot. It's your artist child, and they talk about your artist, your inner artist, being a child. And while it's easy to turn around and neglect yourself as an adult and tell yourself that you don't deserve these couple hours or even an hour of something creative, it's a lot harder to tell your child self that they don't deserve it. And it's very emotional, I must say, especially if you have any kind of, I think, childhood trauma, it's going to be really difficult and really confronting to look at that child version of yourself and see what they want to do on that day. Where do they want to go to be creative? What did that look like for them and for you? It's hard, but it's really important work. There is a suggestion in the book of the first week what to do, and then after that it's kind of up to you, and obviously you don't have to follow the suggestion. I did because, from convenience's sake, it was also one of those things where I stumbled across the place that is recommended, and I just said, okay, that's a sign, I think, that I should do this, because I had the time for it as well. Suggestion in the book for the first artist date is to go to a five and dime, or like an arts and hobby shop. You know, get $5 or €5 and get some silly things, whether that's like stickers or things that you can glue onto your notebook that you're using for your morning pages. I felt so inspired with this artist date because I used to love going to the arts and hobby shop, and I used to love buying art supplies. I used to love art when I was a child, and I loved drawing. In that art and hobby shop, I decided to buy a sketchbook, and I bought a book that teaches you how to draw animals, and I bought some drawing pencils as well. But the thing that was just kind of like the fun, silly part of what I did in there was I came across at the cash register these temporary tattoos. And when I was a child, I actually have no idea what age I was when this happened, but I used to have my first business that I ever had was when I was, I would say, somewhere between 8 and 11. I used to sell temporary tattoos in my primary school. So I would get a big, booklet of them, and then I would cut them up into individual ones, and then I'd put them in a sticker book, and I would share these tattoos around, and people would buy them, and they ranged from like, 20 cents to like €5 for like the big sparkly ones. And I made bank on this business. But it's so funny. So I bought them, and I just like stuck them in like, on my wrist, on my like over here, on my kind of rib cage. And I had a great time. And it felt so stupid, but so fun. And that is the point of these. It's to allow yourself to be silly and to explore and to play and to have fun on your own as an adult. It's not easy, but it is worthwhile. The next week, I did actually get into the drawing side of things as my artist date, and that was again like very rewarding to just sit down for a while and draw and just take the time to figure out how to draw a giraffe, The following week, again, it was a busy week. I nearly didn't take an artist date, and I didn't plan this one, but I took my first lunch break that I've had in probably years, where it was a lunch break by myself for an hour, and I went to a park that I've never really gone to before, and had my lunch and lay down on the grass and just watched the clouds for an hour. I got back into cycling one of the days. One evening in the office space that we have, just played some music and danced. And I am not a dancer. I'm not much of a mover, but that was really good for me to kind of feel out my body. And this was when I was still doing my acting class, so it was helpful for my character work. Yeah, I don't know. They are great. I know that when I do an artist date, I feel much better. It's something that I want to continue on doing, but starting to maybe plan them a bit better. I've seen this girl on Instagram. She has this like collection of different things that each week she just picks one, and I feel like that is something I need, because it's the decision that makes it hard. Anything like that in habit forming, this is related to Atomic Habits by James Clear. Habit stacking, it's easier when you've already got a habit to add in more. So morning pages is easy because you just wake up and you do them. The artist date is hard because, well, there's a decision to be made about what you're going to do, but it's also usually not part of a built-in habit formation. If you can add it onto a lunch break, that's something that I found helpful. However, I often skip lunch breaks. So, not great. Even just the simplest things, like trying to find a bit more novelty in your days, is really important. So if you're always walking the same route to different places, try just walk a different way. If you always get your morning coffee in a particular place, go somewhere else. And I think that practice of giving yourself new experiences and novelty is a really important way to connect back to that creative side of yourself and to allow yourself that room for exploration. I think it's important with these artist dates not to tie yourself to a particular artistic medium. It doesn't have, if you're, following this as a painter, you don't have to spend all your artist dates doing things that are related to painting. It's about creativity as a whole, and that can incorporate so much more than just the particular art form that you're interested in. I think the one that I came into this most interested in is acting. None of these artist dates have involved acting. Something that's been really important in this for me has been the idea of creating just for yourself. I have for my whole life tied my self-worth to what other people see and what other people believe about me. When it comes to being creative, it's like there always has to be some outside perspective on it. And with this process of the artist way, I think you do start to let go of that, because a lot of it is just for you. It's just about figuring out how you can satisfy your own creativity. There was this idea that I had for a really long time to create this Instagram account of photos of random clothes that I see out and about, kind of like a lost and found collection. This is something just for me personally, I find it really uncanny when I see like a hat just discarded somewhere. I always think there's this story behind it. Why is it there? How did it get there? Who left it behind? And I think it's so interesting. But I delayed doing this for a really long time because it was that whole setup of needing to create this thing for people to watch and to have it be perfect. And I decided one day in the last year that I was just going to start taking these photos, and I'm not going to share them with anyone. Like, I might put up a couple in this video, but it's not for anyone else. It's just for me. It's also important because it's something that I collect when I'm out and about walking. And if I don't have the time to stop and take that photo, that's a really important cue for me that I'm doing too much, because I shouldn't be in so much of a rush that I can't stop for a second and take a photo. All of these things together have just been really important for that creative journey for me. Another day, I just walked around the city centre in Dublin and explored new places that I've never been to before. Okay, so let's talk about the actual book itself and the 12-week process. I think an important general point to make here is the book talks a lot about the idea of God, which, if you're not religious, or even if you are, can be strange. And they say in the book, it's really more about the sense of belief, and you can replace that word with any other word that makes sense for you, whether it's goddess, which love, or the great creator, or the universe, or the higher power. But the whole idea of it is really just that there is this bigger thing to tap into when it comes to creativity, and understanding that you as a creative person were given this gift of creativity from the world around us, from the universe. And our gift back to the world and back to the universe is to use that creativity. I think that's been one of the key takeaways for me from the book, is that sense of belief. And that is not an easy thing to tap into when you've spent a long time believing that you aren't that person and you don't deserve these things. Week by week, there are different readings in association with a different theme for the week, as well as different activities which kind of add on to your journaling. They encourage you to spend an extra, I think, hour or two at the beginning of your week to go through the readings and the exercises. They say that you may not get through all of the exercises. Obviously, it's great if you do, but if you don't, then focus on the ones that you really are excited about and the ones that you have a lot of resistance towards, because usually that's a sign that there's some work to be done there. The first week is all about rediscovering a sense of safety. The book is really well organized in terms of how it structures these different weeks, because I think as you're going through the process, you're confronted with these different problems. And at first, I think the problem is that sense of self-criticism and a lack of self-belief. And we'll have a lot of negative beliefs and fears about the idea of becoming an artist. And the first week is all about unpacking that. There's some really useful exercises, in particular looking into the criticisms that you've had in the past that might have shaped this belief, as well as affirmations. Affirmations are risky business because it's something that I think people have a lot of resistance towards, but actually there's a lot of, I think, evidence to support that affirmations work. If you are constantly telling yourself a negative belief, your continued resistance towards creativity and lack of work towards your creative self reinforces that belief. Whereas when we go the other way and we have a positive belief, then we can make action in a positive way and reinforce that positive belief. Week 2 is about rediscovering a sense of identity, and I think identifying as a creative person or an artist. For most people, that is going to bring a lot of discomfort because we will have been identifying a very different way up until this point. It allows us to understand who we are as artists and what we genuinely enjoy, and tap back into an identity that I think we've long forgotten. My favorite exercise from this week is about listing activities that you enjoy and just seeing, can you make some action towards them? And it's such a simple thing to just say, like, yeah, I actually really like cycling. So how can I make this happen? Well, like, I can bring my bike to the bike shop and get my tires fixed. And we imagine that all of these things are so difficult to do when actually there's small steps we can take towards doing things that we enjoy and doing things that excite us. Week 3 is about rediscovering a sense of power. There's a really interesting concept in this chapter about the idea of anger and jealousy, and often the anger that we express at others is a sign about something that we ourselves are wanting. When you're annoyed about an actor not doing a good job on something, it's because, you know, you feel like you could do a better job, or you feel like you could write this TV show better than somebody else. And this is usually something that we then don't do anything about. Obviously, this process is about figuring out how we can then do something. And it allows our anger at the fact that we haven't done these things ourselves to become fuel to do them. And the book also talks in this chapter about the idea of answered prayers. So when somebody comes with you, when somebody comes to you with the opportunity you've been looking for, that can be very scary. I mentioned that they talk about God in this book, and then this idea, it's that we're not afraid that God doesn't exist. We're afraid that they do. It's much more scary when our prayers are answered and we realize we now have to take action towards something, compared to when it's the other way around and we don't feel like it's in our power as much. This chapter in particular has some good digging into your childhood, which can be risky business, but I think it's very helpful for understanding the true desires that you had as a young person. Week 4 is about rediscovering a sense of integrity. And it's about basically being honest with yourself about how your time is being spent and whether or not you are living a life in line with the value of creativity. How are you actually spending your time? Is there better ways we could be spending our time? For the most part, people have time. If you're watching this video, you have time. I see it a lot on social media. I think people saying that, oh, it's well and good for this person to go and do that thing, but I can't do that because blah, 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 blah. And if you have time to watch this video, get annoyed about it and write in the comments, then you have time to go and do something about it. It's that simple. People who don't actually have time, they're not watching this video because they don't have time. They're not anywhere near this. This chapter is really important for that and for understanding that, you know what, you do have time. Something that it practices in this chapter is the reading deprivation, which is where you cut out all reading. And beyond that, it's really a practice that's also a feature of the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. It's the idea of an information diet where you cut out all other sources of distraction. No TV, no social media, no reading, no scrolling, no looking stuff up on the internet, no scrolling through your photos on your phone. And then you'll figure out, actually, there's a lot of time. There is, because I'm sitting here, I'm doing nothing, because there was usually space for me to fill this time with other things. And I think this week is really important for understanding that. Week 5 is about rediscovering a sense of possibility. And it's really all about setting goals and dreaming big for yourself as an artist. It allows you to think about long-term desires and short-term desires and start to make an action plan for how you're going to live this creative life. I think it's a really positive chapter, especially after the several weeks of, dealing with negative beliefs and self-criticism and being honest with yourself about your time and all these other things. This is a chance to, I think, open up to a more positive future perspective. Week 6 is rediscovering a sense of abundance. Often something that holds people back is that we have a scarcity mindset. So we believe that there is limited opportunities around us and, we're never going to get them. It's a problem that holds people back with money, with jobs, with starting a social media account, because people believe that all of the opportunity on social media has been taken up, which is very much not true, because here I am. This week, I think, encourages you to understand that there is a lot of opportunity around us and also to be grateful for these. Some interesting activities here are practicing this idea of an abundance mindset with money, with clutter, and with clearing a physical and mental space. Week 7 is about rediscovering a sense of connection. It allows you to connect more deeply with your creativity as well as the creative world around you. Week 8 is rediscovering a sense of strength. So again, we're building up these ideas from letting go of the negative and building on the positive. So this allows you to build up that resilience and reinforces your commitment to your creative journey. Understanding how to deal with setbacks, which are going to be inevitable in this process, and allow you to continue to make leaps and bounds forward with your creative journey. Something I think really interesting in this is the idea of a creative U-turn, which is, I think, when you basically decide, no, I'm going. So I was on this path and now I'm going away. Those are things that we want to figure out when those are happening, because we'll come across setbacks, and a lot of the time they'll really convince us to turn around and say, no, we're not going that way. But understanding that we need to overcome these and continue on the path. Week 9 is about rediscovering a sense of compassion for yourself. And I think that's important no matter what you are up to, but learning to be compassionate to yourself. Again, I think reminding ourselves that the artist is a child, it's our inner child, and they deserve compassion. If you were to look at your younger self and try and give them the criticism that you want to give yourself, you'd think twice. And this week is all about that. Week 10 is about rediscovering a sense of self-protection. Again, linking in with that idea of the inner child, it's about protecting that child from the things outside of us that can hurt them. So we can hurt ourselves by having these negative beliefs and not showing ourselves compassion, but other people around us or other things can hurt us too. And this is about creating boundaries to ensure that you can conserve your creativity, make sure that you're still making time for your creativity. Week 11 is rediscovering a sense of autonomy. That involves embracing your independence as an artist and creating a creative environment for yourself, taking more risks as an artist, and asserting your artistic identity. That's really important for when you get towards the end of this process. It's about saying, the last couple of weeks of it are about saying, here's how I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to start embracing myself as an artist and being that independent artist, telling people that I am an artist. And then finally, the last week, rediscovering a sense of faith and belief. And that's something I mentioned at the start of this section, about trusting that there is this process that's flowing through you. And there's some nice activities in that section for celebrating your progress as an artist and setting future creative goals for yourself, and also maintaining that positivity. So it really is a journey, I think, across those 12 weeks, starting with those more negative aspects, I think, and then slowly building more and more towards the positive and stronger aspects of this 12-week process. In terms of my progress as an artist, I thought when I was embarking on this process, it was going to be about specifically acting. I think the most surprising thing from following this journey has been that it's not acting that this whole thing is about. It's not to say that that's not something I don't want to be doing. It really is. It's more that creativity is so much broader than one particular interest, and the morning pages brings up a bunch of stuff. I was really surprised to start drawing during this process, and it's something I'd love to do more of, because that really was something that as a child I was so into. I used to just spend hours drawing pictures and sketching. I just loved it. I really did. When I did art in secondary school as well, my interest was definitely more in drawing than, say, painting or any kind of like sculpting. It was definitely about drawing, and I wasn't expecting to get into that. I've done a lot of creative writing during this time, and I definitely wasn't expecting that. I've written poetry. I've never written poetry before, and I've written a couple of poems. They're not going to go anywhere, I don't believe. It's really been important to learn about how not all of my art has to be shown to other people. You don't need to see it. I can just create it, and it doesn't have to do anything. I think we live in a world at the moment where things are very performative. We're so conditioned to believe that our worth is based on the views of others and the worth that other people place on our, whatever it might be, our art in this case. And it's been nice creating things during this process that I don't think will ever see the light of day. Maybe when I'm dead. I think that's a really important learning point that I wasn't expecting to have. It's also something I've been kind of toying around with in counselling, is that way of trying to do things that you enjoy just for you, that don't involve other people, they don't require other people to observe you. Acting is something that naturally, I think there is that sense of somebody has to watch it, and it's a two-way street most of the time. You can't really act to a degree without somebody being impacted by your work. The other thing that I think I wasn't expecting is how much this impacted me as a content creator, because while it's obviously called content creation by a lot of people, I just didn't really think about it that way, and I didn't think about how much I was valuing the viewer when I was trying to create content, especially trying to get back into it earlier in the year. I really was holding myself back because of all of these pressures that I don't believe really exist, and all of these expectations from the viewer that I'm really making up. I had so much fun creating some of the videos that I created over this time, like creating those vlogs that were really retrospective because they were months later that I was editing them. I think one of my favorite videos that I made during the time was my vlog about being an entrepreneur, and I have a lot of ideas for videos that I think are more long form and really experimental, that I think have me really excited about the future of my channel. I think I've really kind of let go, well, I'm really trying to let go of the idea of views and subscribers and all of these things that I don't think matter that much. It's hard at the same time, when you're given access to those things, not to think about them. Even though I've wanted to make this video in particular for a long time, it's so hard to know which way it's going to go, and will I be disappointed if it doesn't get engagement with comments and reach a wider audience than another video? Yeah, I think I will be. But that being said, I do feel a lot more renewed in my content creation journey. I think this process has been useful. Tying into challenges, one challenge that I think, because I've been following this process and also putting artwork out into the world through my content creation, that's not a great idea when you're getting started, because there is that level of criticism from outside and inside when we're creating, and I've definitely been very judgmental of my work over these weeks. It could have been maybe preferable to have finished the program before getting back into content creation. I think it really is important to keep your artwork to yourself to a degree during the initial stages, as you're overcoming a lot of this self-doubt and letting go of other people's views, especially in this media that's literally designed around other people's views, if you know what I mean. Some challenges that I've faced in following this program. When I first came across it, I was not in the right place to fully get on board with it. I was lecturing a lot, I was running my business, I was doing my PhD, I was trying to do this content creation stuff. It was just not the right time. So the first time that I tried to do this, and I couldn't do the morning pages at the right time, I couldn't keep up with them day to day. It might be days going by that I didn't do them. I never managed to do an artist date. I don't think I got past the first week of readings. It wasn't the right time. The more recent time that I've been doing this now, I have the space and the time set aside for this process. I think the challenge that crept in was leading into any kind of busy period in the business. I definitely forewent the readings. Sometimes the artist date I think didn't get enough attention. The point that I got to in the book was really 4 weeks in, and my plan is to continue this process on a trip that I will discuss with you in a little moment, which some of you I'm sure know about. Plan to continue on with the readings and the work so that by the time I come back I've completed the process. I think I'm back in a better headspace with it. I definitely got into a really negative headspace with it recently because while I'm going through this process of understanding my creativity and being able to have all of these creative ideas, I feel like I lack the time still to actually make progress towards those ideas, so to actually do the work. And that's obviously going to be a difficulty because I'm gradually moving into this process of trying to free up time to spend more time on these different ideas. But I'm in the moment at the moment where I'm just really angry. Actually, I'm angry about a bunch of stuff. I'm angry about not having had this in my life previously. And obviously you can't change the past, but I think it's important to acknowledge these feelings. But I'm really just angry that I don't have the time still to work on these ideas that I have. I'm also starting to get a scarcity mindset around the ability for me to continue this work outside of just myself. So by that I mean, when it comes to acting, I have my next course booked, and after that I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And that's really scary because I'm starting to wonder, will I be able to act again in the next year until I think about next summer where I can go on a similar trip? I'm getting that kind of scarcity mindset because it feels like I can either decide to go and do full-time training, which I can't do because I have all of these responsibilities, and as well, it'd be a huge financial undertaking. I also am really wanting to get to this point in my life where I can just spend the day with my dog. And I feel like if I go and take on this full-time course for 3 years, I'm delaying it further, and then who knows how much longer she will have after that. You know, it's just like all of these things that I feel are on my mind when it comes to this. So I feel like I'm lacking the right avenue to continue this work, and I'm getting that kind of scarcity mindset around that, which I'm hoping week 6 of the readings and the activities will help with, because that's kind of what they're all about. The useful thing about this program is that when different things that can get in our way or block us from our creativity happen again, I think we can look towards the different weeks of the book and remind ourselves different ways of overcoming those blocks are. So at the moment, my block, I think, is the scarcity mindset that there's not going to be any opportunity for me to continue this work once I come back from my trip. That's probably not true. It's just that's how I'm feeling at the moment. Future work, as they say in the academic world. Some of you will know because I've talked about this in 1 or 2 recent videos, but I have created for myself an artist sabbatical, essentially. A mini retirement from the world of everything to be able to pursue my artist dreams for 5 weeks. I'm going to London. I'm going to be living in London for 5 weeks, and I'm going to be studying in RADA, a Shakespeare performance course, and that's full-time training, the last week of which sounds like it's very intensive full-time training. I'm going to be then at the end doing a show, and I'm so excited. So excited. I love Shakespeare. I'm just really excited to do full-time training. I really am. Yes, I don't know what will happen after that, and that is kind of scary. One of the ideas I have is in relation to that, because I think I have a way to solve my own problem, which in business is always, always, always a good thing. Because if you have a problem, probably other people have that problem. And if you have a good solution, then there are people willing to pay for that solution. And it's not a business I want to necessarily make money with. I want it to be something that helps artists to continue their creativity especially at this age where I do think the opportunities are fewer and further between. I also was reached out to by someone that I did a class with a couple months ago about a workshop in September. Now it's just 2 days, but like, these opportunities are out there. And one of the things that I think this program opens you up to is that idea of when you're calling out for something and it comes your way, take it. You know, not to take every opportunity, but it's just that we often are not actually afraid that we're not going to get a sign. They talk about God in this book, and it's that idea of we're not really afraid that God doesn't exist. We're afraid that they do. And we're afraid that there will be a sign because that forces it back into our hands. And it's a lot easier to have it be the other way around. And I think that's where these things come in. I think when people are telling you that you have something and or you come across these avenues to be your creative self, take them. You know, they're there. They are there. I just think we'll all struggle with different parts of this throughout the process. So I'm excited about the future. I'm really excited about my trip. I do want to document this process. I think it's going to be a challenge to do so because I will be in class all the time. I'm not going to film obviously any of that. I don't think I'll be allowed to, but I also don't want to. So I think I may just try and do this on Instagram, maybe even just in stories, to share what my day looks like as an artist every day for the 5 weeks that I'm away. I am on the right path with my creativity. I think it's the thing I should be doing. I think it's something really special, and I think no matter what avenue it takes me down, I'm excited. That is it for this video. I think it was a long one, but I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you like these slightly deeper dives into the world of creativity and productivity, then let me know. I hope that some of you will feel inspired to take on the same challenge, and I will see you all very soon.